Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 8 team selection where I have 3 free transfers and I'm very tempted to use a couple of them. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. We are officially back. The international break is over and it is time to get back in to the FPL frame of mind. I've missed you all very much. I've taken a bit of a break from content and this is the point of the video where I do caveat a few things. I've actually been in Greece for the past 10 days and I wanted to genuinely enjoy my holiday rather than still be thinking about FPL. So I've not opened the FPL app. I deleted X from my phone, so I've not been keeping up to date massively with the news. I've not even been keeping much of an eye over the international football either. I just wanted a complete break. So if I say anything in today's video that is horribly wrong, I do apologize. Give me a little bit of leniency, but also let me know down below if I say anything which sounds completely crazy. Next thing, I would love your help today because I've not really been thinking about FPL as much as usual, and because I have 3 free transfers, there are a lot of directions I can take my team, so I would love your help. And the third and final thing, I have only got back into the UK a few hours ago. There has been tons of travel today. And so if I look a little bit tired or sound tired, that is why. I've literally only just got home. As soon as I got in, I made the graphics for this video and now I'm recording. So all of those caveats out the way. Apologies if it is not as professional and smooth as the videos sometimes are. Very briefly, because nobody really cares anyway, it was so long ago. Game Week 7, how did it go for me? Because I've not actually uploaded a video since the Game Week 7 results. And it was another good week after I wildcarded. So did I wildcard a couple of weeks ago now? I think that's consecutive green arrows. And that's all you can ask for, really. When I look at my team, though, maybe slightly fortunate. The only players that seem to be doing much for us at the moment are Semenyo and Haaland. The two of them continue to perform. I didn't expect much from Semenyo in this game. He obviously delivers that massive 18-pointer. And your weekend or your game week is basically over if you went without him, or at least it feels that way. Haaland continues to return. He just feels like such a safe captaincy option at the moment. And then outside of those two, it was basically the Arsenal clean sheet. And this is the reason we've gone for double Arsenal defence, a lot of us, because they are just absolutely elite. Not only do they keep clean sheets, they barely concede any chances. Gabriel gets DEFCON again, and his DEFCON numbers have shot up this season, which is great. Raya gets his classic 6-pointer because he refuses to make more than 3 saves in a given game. And then other than that clean sheet, I basically just scammed some points from Tarkowski and Njai. And the reason I say that, Tarkowski gets DEFCON and bonus, which is a bit of a farce. I'm on Tarkowski owner, I'm very happy. But getting bonus in a game like that where he's conceded and got no attacking returns was a bit strange. And then Njai was basically bailed out by the penalty, because other than that, he didn't do a massive amount in that game. So yeah, it was a good week overall. I've gone from 3.5 million to 2.9 million. It was 73 points. I'm now up to 389 points. Still not quite crossed that 400 points barrier, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. And as much as there are some issues I need to sort with the team, I'm still very largely happy with the wild card that I built a few weeks ago. So yeah, that's how Game Week 7 went. Not much more to say. Let's now take a look at my team for Game Week 8 and lots of possible transfer paths that I could go down. So guys, moving on to Game Week 8, I have 0.4 million in the bank and 3 free transfers. And I have looked at everything from just rolling the free transfer because it's post-international break and I've just wildcarded and I don't mind my team, to using all 3 free transfers. I think what is probably most likely is either a roll or a double move. I think 1 free transfer and 3 free transfers is quite unlikely, but there are quite a couple of moves I like that involve using 2 free transfers, as I'll discuss once we've looked at my team in its entirety and I move on to my possible transfer options. But stick with me for this video, because even if you don't own the same players as me, hopefully I'll be talking about some of the players that you might be tempted to bring in. And of course, we will always start with the goalkeepers and the defenders, and I'm very happy with this current setup right now. So Raya and Dubravka. I've seen a lot of people panicking over Raya. Nothing has changed with David Raya. If you picked David Raya recently, we know that he doesn't make saves. We know that he will keep clean sheets. And all we've seen thus far is Raya doesn't make many saves, but he does keep clean sheets. And I've always said, and it's not really a particularly genius motto to have, but I've always said, from goalkeepers, you need clean sheets and saves. You ideally need the pair of them because 6-pointers are great, but unless they are literally getting you a 6 pretty much every week, they're not going to be fantastic across the season. But also, you don't want a goalkeeper that's making 6 saves a game but never keeps a clean sheet. You need the combination. That's why someone like Jordan Pickford has been so fantastic across the past 2 seasons, because Everton keep clean sheets. but they also concede a lot of shots. So Jordan Pickford can go and get you those 9 and 10 pointers. So all of that to say, do I think David Raya is fantastic value? No. If I was on a wild card this week, would I be tempted to pick a Sanchez or a Pope instead? Maybe, but we've picked David Raya for the double clean sheets that you often get, and I still feel really comfortable having him and Gabriel every single week. So yeah, I don't necessarily think you need him in your team, but if you own him, I don't get the clamour to sell David Raya at the moment, and I think Dubravka is a perfectly good backup goalkeeper in the weeks that you need him. Even this week, by the way, you could try and justify starting him ahead of Raya, but basically, unless Raya is injured or unless I'm bench boosting, he's going to start every single week for me. And so moving on to the defence, I do have Gabriel. I love Timber. I think Timber is such an exciting pick. And maybe in hindsight, if I were to go for the double Arsenal defence still, maybe Gabriel and Timber was the play. I just had those concerns over his minutes, but I just don't think Ben White ever looks like he's going to get fully fit. And even if you give me a fully fit Ben White or a fully fit Timber, I would argue Timber is the stronger fullback. So I think his minutes will be great. Calafiori looks good too. But at least with Raya and Gabriel, the minutes feel very secure. Gabriel might miss the odd game. Raya's there every single week. And with the fixtures they've got coming up against Fulham, Crystal Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, Spurs, you could see at least 3 clean sheets in the next 5 games. So yeah, Fulham away, fine game. Don't mind it. I could see them conceding. But I'm just going to stay patient and keep the pair of them in my team. The rest of the defence, I'm also happy with. The 4 players that I have are all fantastic for DEFCON. Senesi, Tarkowski and Anderson remain the 3 best defenders in the league for defensive contributions. And Rodon is okay for DEFCON, but also very cheap and has good fixtures in the weeks that I want him. So at the moment, I do think the defence picks itself for this week. Rodon against Burnley. Gabriel obviously against Fulham. I'll play him every week. Never bench Gabriel. I benched him twice last season for, 3 times. A 6-pointer, a 9-pointer and a 15-pointer. Never bench Gabriel. And then Senesi obviously is fantastic at the moment. Tarkowski's got Manchester City and Anderson has Arsenal. So for those reasons, I think the pair of them sit on the bench for me this week. And then I play the back 3 of Rodon, Gabriel and Senesi. I don't think I need transfers at the moment. There are no defenders that I don't own right now that I would desperately love to bring in. I think, if anything, maybe a Man City defender, because I think clean sheets will come. We saw a big boy score for Guardiola in Game Week 7. And then maybe just a Crystal Palace defender, like Richards, Munoz, Lacroix. I think they all look fantastic. Even obviously Gaze as well, getting attacking returns left, right and centre. They all look like they might be better value than Tarkowski. But unless I need the money, and I want to free up the money by doing something like Tarkowski to Richards would obviously free me up $1 million, I think that's the only way that I sell him right now. Because as much as, again, I don't know that Tarkowski is worth 5.5, is it also worth a transfer unless I need the money? Probably not. So that's the situation I'm in right now. I guess Raya and Tarkowski are the 2 players that could in the future leave if I need the money, but I just don't see the need for a defensive transfer right now, and I've got 4 DEFCON guys and Gabriel. So yeah, very happy with the defence as it stands. Hopefully Rodon can get me a clean sheet this week, because I know it's probably not ideal playing a Leeds defender, but I feel okay with it. Let's move on to the midfield. So guys, moving on to the midfield, and this is 100% the weakest part of my team. And when I've looked at Game Week 8 wildcards and I've seen people that are wildcarding, this is the part of the team that looks most different to mine. You could conceivably change, other than Semenyo, who I just think is fantastic, you could conceivably take out 4 of my midfielders and it would probably make your team stronger overall. So my current 5-man midfield is Stack, who has Burnley this week, Reinders against Everton at home, Fernandes against Liverpool away, Semenyo against Palace away, and at the moment, Iliman Ndiaye against Man City away on my bench. There is definitely an argument, by the way, to bench Stack this week if I keep things as it is and I don't make transfers and to start Ndiaye against Man City away. We'll discuss when we look at my possible transfer options that there is a reasonable chance, or maybe let's say a small to moderate chance that I actually sell Stack this week, in which case Ndiaye would stay on the bench anyway. So I've set it up in this way, but let's go through each of these, because like I said, I think Stack, Reinders, Fernandes and Ndiaye, depending upon what you look for in an FPL asset, you could justify selling any of the 4 of them. And let's actually start with the 2 weak spots. The 2 weakest players in my team as of right now for me are Stack and Bruno Fernandes. If I could turn back time, to break it to song, if I could turn back time and change 2 things on my wildcard, it probably would be Stack and Fernandes, because that is 14 million of budget. That is far too much money to spend on a cheap player, yes, in Stack, that but doesn't look great for DEFCON. Got an early sub in Game Week 7. He's lost set pieces to Longstaff. Lots of people criticised the pick at the time. You couldn't have been more right if that was you. It's just a bit of a stinky pick. There was a lot of recency bias. It was a massive knee-jerk. The thing is, I just wanted a player that had good fixtures in the weeks where I might bench boost. And the 3 weeks where I might bench boost, Stack has Burnley, West Ham, Forest. So I kind of still back the thought process, but he's just not a very good asset. Without the DEFCON, without the set pieces, not much from open play. Other than the fixtures, which are pretty good, I'm just not feeling it right now with Stack. And then Fernandes is just not a good pick right now. He might not be on penalties. I know people are saying after the Liverpool game, the fixtures are a bit better. They are a bit better, but they're not great. He does take set pieces, but he's not very good at them. He's playing quite a deep role. He's not even getting DEFCON every game. It's back-to-back games now without DEFCON. He's just not worth it. Like, as much as I love Bruno Fernandes as a player, and as much as I do still think, by the way, I still think, you might not agree, I still think Bruno Fernandes is a good FPL asset. He is nowhere near worth 9 million. People are pointing to players like Iliman Ndiaye and Gyökeres that they want to sell instead. And I can get both of them, by the way. But surely Fernandes is more of an issue. I don't know why more people aren't talking about potentially selling him. Now, all of that to say, there is a good chance that I don't make a transfer this week and I don't sell Fernandes. But as you'll see when we look at my possible transfers, I think every single transfer plan that I have involves selling Fernandes. Because if you want to free up money in this team, you cannot justify selling any of the other players to front the money. And if you want to free up significant money, something like Tarkowski to Richards just doesn't do it. So basically, I'm left in a position right now where I think my 2 weakest players are Stack and Fernandes. To upgrade Stack, I would have to downgrade Fernandes. But it doesn't feel like a downgrade. Like if you tell me you can do Fernandes to Ismail Assar, Declan Rice, Enzo Fernandez, Eze, all of these players just feel better right now. So, yet those two players are worth so much money as a pairing, obviously mainly because of Fernandes. It feels like if you made a double move and switched the pair of them out, you could just drastically improve both of them. So those are the two positions in the midfield. I absolutely agree. And by the way, comments again a couple of weeks ago told me that those were the two. So well done if that was you. They're the two that I am thinking I would quite like to change. Now, do I need to make that move this week? No. I do still think there's a chance Fernandes is on pens. Liverpool have looked anything other than solid defensively. And if I'm viewing that as a pair of changes, this looks a bit sus, then Stack this week has Burnley. And I don't necessarily need to take out Stack before the Burnley fixture. So maybe the pair of them could wait and be changed out after that. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm identifying the weaknesses, but I'm not necessarily sure I have to rush the pair of moves this week. On to Gianni Reinders, I've been really disappointed in terms of his output. Performance-wise, eye test-wise, he always looks like he's got a good chance of returning, and I do think he'll pick up assists and goals throughout the season. If I was on a wild card, I probably wouldn't have Reinders this week. I think there are enough other players that I'd be tempted by. You could go all the way down to like a Granit Xhaka, Longstaff, who look like good cheap options, or a Caicedo in and around the same price, so good for DEFCON. Or I still think Paquetá for the next 4 or 5 could be really nice. I'm not sure I would have Tijani Reinders, but when he's in my team, he's not a priority right now. He's not expensive enough to want to downgrade him. There aren't tons of players that I would say I'd desperately prefer instead. So yeah, definitely Fernandes and Stack are more of an issue for me right now than Tijani Reinders. So by default, he stays in. I think Semenyo is getting to a point where he will become so expensive that he's no longer good value. And you could argue he's at that point now around 8 million. But considering I bought him in at a cheaper price, again, I'm just not going to use a transfer to take out Semenyo. He's probably going to be one of those players that stays in now until he picks up an injury or a potential rotation or something happens where he becomes where he's no longer a viable asset. Because as of right now, he's just a fantastic asset to have in the team. Iliman Ndiaye is causing some polarized opinions right now. I just don't know how anyone can sit there and want to take out Ndiaye instead of Bruno Fernandes. And I say that as a biased Man United fan that loves Bruno. They're arguably just very similar players. They're both on pens. Both can get DEFCON. Obviously, Bruno's got better DEFCON potential, but Ndiaye has shown on 2 or 3 occasions this season he can get DEFCON. They both have fantastic minutes. They're both very talismanic. And I would say overall their fixtures are quite comparable. Fernandes is 9 million. Ndiaye is, 6.5. It's just, I don't think that... I think maybe I over-exaggerated and overemphasized just how good Ndiaye is as an option, but he's definitely better than Bruno if you're taking into account value. So I just won't be selling him right now, and I still do really rate him as an asset. Would I have him on a wild card? Again, with the fixtures over the next few, there's a potential you maybe look elsewhere, but I still really like him as a pick. So I could definitely see myself keeping in Iliman Ndiaye for the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, maybe even potentially beyond that as well. And it was nice to have that confirmation that he is on penalties. So yeah, to recap that, Semenyo's the only midfielder where I'm like, there's no chance that I sell him anytime soon. Iliman Ndiaye I still really like. He's probably my second favourite midfielder I own. So those two, probably unlikely to lose. Tijani Reinders, I could see myself selling at some point, but just who do I move to? He's not expensive enough to use the funds. And then Stack and Fernandez, I would like to probably remove the pair of them. It's just whether I do it this week, or whether I look to do it in some of the coming weeks instead. Hopefully that makes sense, but definitely the midfield at the moment, because you'll see my forward line in a second, it's not terrible. It's definitely the positions in the team where I'm most likely, and in all honesty, I could use all 3 transfers this week, remove Stack, Reinders, Fernandez, improve those 3, and I'd be feeling pretty happy. It's just about whether I need to use the transfers this week, or whether I can potentially wait and prioritise them in order. So moving on to the front 3, and as of right now, it's João Pedro, Haaland, and Gyökeres. João Pedro and Gyökeres being sold by quite a lot of people at the moment, and I can kind of get why both are being sold. João Pedro has been sold again by almost like 500,000 managers, I think, for this game week. I just think this is a terrible time to sell João Pedro. He's had the international break off. Hopefully he'll be feeling rested. All of those little niggles that he was struggling with hopefully would have improved. And he's got Forest, who, assuming Ange is still in charge by the time that game goes ahead, is a great fixture. And Sunderland, Wolves and Burnley as the other fixtures there. And even Spurs, you could argue, haven't been perfect defensively under Thomas Frank. As a set of 5 fixtures, I'm not sure you could ask for much more there. And I just think he's a fantastic footballer. I still think there is a small chance he shares penalties with Enzo Fernandez when Palmer's out. And I do think if Palmer was in the team, João Pedro would be even better, because I think he needs that kind of player to play off of him. Whether he needs a 9, whether he needs a 10 in behind him, I just think he needs someone in there to support him. I think that is what he's struggling with. But all of that together, I just can't see anyone that I would desperately move to instead. I'm seeing people say like João Pedro to Walter Marda, and as much as I think he's a fantastic asset, I'm just not feeling that at all. So for me, João Pedro is a great pick. If I was on wildcard, I would absolutely have him as well. The next 5 fixtures are great. After that, from like 12 onwards, I can definitely understand why you might look to move him on, especially if he doesn't perform in these fixtures here. On Gyökeres, he's not really the asset that we were hoping for, right? He clearly isn't hitting his stride at the moment in Arsenal. And also, Saka taking the penalty ahead of him was an absolute sucker punch. I wasn't watching the game. I saw the notification come through. Arsenal have a penalty, go on to X, Twitter, and I see Saka is stepping up. That is not what you want when one of the main reasons for picking him was that we thought he'd be on penalties. I think it's what the cool kids call copium right now. I can't have said cool kids or copium. It is a little bit of copium, right? Because I picked a 9 million asset that might not be on penalties. I still think that Gyökeres could share penalties with Saka. We have seen with Arsenal and with Saka before, there was this period where Saka took one, Ødegaard took one, Saka took one, then Ødegaard, and every week we're like, haha, see, Saka's on pens. Oh wait, is Ødegaard on pens? Are they sharing pens? Oh no, Saka's taken this one. It's so difficult to work out in some of these teams. They might just not have one penalty taker. There might be 2 or 3 that are nominated, and they take it based on who feels a certain way. We saw it actually with Crystal Palace. Do you remember Eze and Mateta were taking them? So maybe it's Gyökeres and Saka, or maybe, again, it is complete copium, and this just shows that Saka is first choice. I definitely think we need to weight penalties in favour of Saka. So I think right now, for me, it has switched from, I was probably like 80% on Gyökeres, 20% Saka. I would say it's now switched to like 75% Saka, 25% Gyökeres. If Saka takes the next one, then yeah, we bump it up to like 95% Saka. If he takes again, then we say 100%. But as of right now, I don't think we could rule out the possibility that Gyökeres could take a penalty, especially if he is struggling for goals. I'm pretty sure, please forgive me if I'm wrong, this is just based off memory, when Saka gave Ødegaard the penalty, it either just returned from an injury or he was going through a bit of a drought himself. Saka's that kind of player. He's captain material. He's a bit of a team player, so I would not be surprised if Gyökeres does get a pen. So that's that on penalties. If, let's say we just strip penalties away, he's not on penalties, let's say Saka's first choice, Gyökeres never takes a pen for Arsenal, he's absolutely not worth the money, but is it worth the switch? Because really, I think I would want 3 Arsenal. Like, there is the option to just sell Gyökeres to a cheaper forward, as I'll discuss in a second. But then, if we wanted to do a switch to an Eze, or to a Timber, or to a Saka, to go for another Arsenal asset, is it worth the 2 transfers that we required? Because he is still the number 9 for Arsenal. Even without pens, you expect Arsenal to score 2 to 3 goals a game. let's say minimum 2, you kind of just expect him to probably pick up goals and assists across the next 5 games. So I'm starting to lean more and more towards just keep him in the team for the foreseeable. If a few more games go by, let's say Fulham, Palace, Burnley, he gets like 1 goal, Saka takes another pen, yeah, maybe we just sell him regardless of fixtures, regardless of him being the number 9 for Arsenal. But right now, I kind of feel like I just want to give him a little bit longer. But there is certainly the possibility to switch to other Arsenal assets instead. Because, like I said, Timber, Eze, and Saka, for me, are 3 fantastic assets that I'd like to own. Haaland's great. Haaland will be my captain. So that is I don't need to talk about Haaland in these videos. So that is the team as of right now. Raya, Rodon, Gabriel, Senesi, Stack, Reinders, Fernandes, Semenyo, João Pedro, Haaland, Gyökeres. So the 3 weak points in order are probably Stack, Fernandes, Gyökeres. And I would say Tarkowski is probably slightly overpriced for what he's offering. I think Richards would do a similar job for a little bit cheaper. So there may be the 4 players that I can see myself moving around. So with that in mind, 3 free transfers, 0.4 million in the bank. Before we take a look at my possible transfers, I would love to know down below in the comments, without being biased by what I'm about to say, what would you do with this team? Would you roll? Would you sell just Fernandes? Would you sell Fernandes and Stack? Would you make the switch from Gyökeres to Saka? What would you do? I'll now talk you through what I'm currently leaning towards with a couple of days until the deadline. So guys, moving on to my possible transfers for Game Week 8. So just to remind you, 3 free transfers, 0.4 million in the bank. But as I often say, there is something in psychology called action bias, which means as humans, we have a natural tendency to prefer action over inaction. So especially after an international break, when we've had no FPL, no ability to tinker and make transfers, there can be this like itch that we have to just make moves for the sake of it. So I could quite easily roll, and maybe in this situation where nothing massively screams out. None of the players that I'm bringing in here, all of the players on your screen right now that I might transfer in, none of them have great fixtures. Some of them have doubts associated with them. And some of the players that I'm looking at selling also have decent fixtures or reasons to keep them. So there is always the possibility that I roll here, and I will maintain that. So if you see me at the deadline roll, know that I always said it's a possibility. But as of right now, if I make transfers, I've listed 3 options. Option 1 is 1 transfer, and then options 2, 3, and 4 involve using 2. There are a couple that I could use 3 free transfers on, but I'm just not massively feeling it. I just don't think I need to use 3 transfers this week. So, option 1, which I think a lot of people will be a big fan of, is to do the Fernandes switch. Sell Fernandes for Fernandes. So, Bruno out, Enzo in. As of me recording this, which is very late on Wednesday evening, I've not seen a definitive update on Enzo Fernandes, but hopefully Maresca will be honest on that, although I just don't trust managers at all these days. But he did say, or the reason for Enzo not playing in the final international game for Argentina was like swelling of the knee or fluid in the knee, a couple of people said. And he has had strapping on his knee throughout the season. So I do believe that there is probably something going on with his knee. But I've also seen reports that apparently Enzo was never planning to play in that final game anyway. So he was allowed to go back to London, back to Chelsea, because he was never planning on being involved in that fixture anyway. He would have just been there with the squad. So it almost sounds a bit like what we might have seen with the likes of João Pedro, where it's a bit of like an enforced rest, and there's been a bit of an agreement that these players don't have to play every single international game. So lots of hypothesizing. And I've also seen people that genuinely believe this could be an injury. If there are any doubts, I of course won't make the move. But if we see him in team training or Maresca gives a very positive update, I do think as of right now, Enzo Fernandes is a better option than Bruno, ignoring money. And so when you take into account how much cheaper he is, he just feels like a player that I'd want. He's got a better fixture. As of right now, he's probably got more of a chance, you would say, of being on penalties. Takes some set pieces. And what I wanted to show you, I'm just going to jump over to Fantasy Football Hub to show you this. Non-penalty expected goals, I've sorted this table by. This season, Haaland in first, Mateta in second, Sarr in third, who we'll discuss in a second, Semenyo fourth, and then Enzo fifth. So even if you remove the pens, Enzo has been really impressive this season. I will admit, that is quite skewed. I think he had a chance, which was like 0.95 XG. It was the header that he scored, but still, he's putting up really decent numbers in the absence of Palmer, and we don't know how long Palmer will be out for, but he's playing basically that Palmer role in the team for so cheap. I'm not saying we've got like the Palmer of last season, but if he keeps pens, takes some set pieces, and keeps getting the same non-penalty expected goals that we're seeing as of right now, you've got to say he's a fantastic option. By the way, I have been reliably informed that the 50% off offer from Fantasy Football Hub will be ending at the Game Week 8 deadline. So if you've heard me talk about Fantasy Football Hub in these videos, if you want access to underlying data, fixture analyzer, points predictions, all of the great stuff on the website, the 50% off ends at this deadline. So if you're ever going to do it, now is the time to do it. There probably will be another discount after that, but it will definitely be lower. So definitely check it out. There will be a link down below. But back to what we were actually discussing, if I can find my graphic, Enzo Fernandez is just a great option right now, and I would love him in my team. So assuming he is fit and available, I'll find it probably quite difficult to not bring him in, and the Forest game does feel great. I will just say, though, early kickoff, maybe he doesn't get 90 minutes in this game, maybe he gets an early sub, but he's a player you want in your team anyway. Option 2, sorry, that would give me 2.7 million in the bank. Option 2 is still do Fernandez to Enzo, but then actually using that money to upgrade Stack as well. Now, I'm a little bit more hesitant on this one, just because Stack does have Burnley. And also, I quite like the structure of having a 5 million price point in the team. Because if I do the move of Bruno Fernandes to Enzo Fernandez and then Stack to Ismail Assar, my 8th attacker then becomes Tijani Reinders, which I don't hate. But that basically means pretty much every week, unless there is a player that has a standout bad fixture, which happens sometimes, I have a bit of a benching headache. And that might not be the worst thing in the world. But I also like not having to make that decision. And each week just having that 5 million player that sits on my bench. So I'm not that desperate to like change the structure. But at the same time, I do just look at Stack each week and just think he's just a player that isn't really that viable unless he has someone like Burnley, which doesn't happen very often. So yeah, if I go for Fernandez to Enzo and then Stack to Sarr, as I just showed you, I'm bringing in 2 of the players with the best non-penalty expected goals this season in the top 5, 3rd and 5th. And I've already got Semenyo. And I've already got Haaland. So that would mean that my team is then, I have the 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th best players for data so far this season. And as you guys will know, I'm quite data-driven. Like, Bruno Fernandes and Stack to Enzo Fernandez and Sarr, it's really not comparable. Like, the latter options are better. And I've got the free transfers to do it. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, other than just, I love Bruno and Stack has a good fixture, is there anything here which can justify me not making these moves? I'd still have a free transfer to use after that. It would give me 1.2 million in the bank. Like, try and put me off option 2, please, because it does feel a little bit like just do it. Just improve your team. It would then make my team very similar to what I would probably wildcard with in 8. These are 2 players that I'd love to have. And I also don't think they're necessarily season keepers, but Enzo and Sarr are both players that I'd be very happy with moving forward. So yeah, option 2, it feels the most obvious. It feels the most likely moving forward. Right, option 3 is if I want to get Saka in. Now, I really do like this, but it also just doesn't feel like a waste of a transfer necessarily, but it does feel a little bit kind of knee-jerky. So it would be Gyökeres probably to Walter, like if I'm Walter, if I'm looking at forwards that I don't know, like Jared Bowen, I can afford to bring in instead. I can still afford, by the way, Jean-Philippe Mateta, who I think is probably quite underrated. Like if we go back, I just showed you, he's 2nd on this list for non-penalty expected goals so far this season. If we sort it by big chances, he's had the 2nd most big chances with 9, then Semenyo with 7, then Gyökeres and Enzo with 6. Like Mateta is getting the chances, he's not converting them, but we know that he can do so. But anyway, probably Gyökeres to Walter would be the most likely, and then obviously Fernandes to Saka. I know a lot of people look at this and say, yeah, I'd much rather Saka than Gyökeres, and Walter great. I kind of do agree, but then I also look at the value that Enzo and Sarr could offer, and I'm like, do I need to make the switch from Gyökeres to Saka? I'm still then not bringing in these other good cheap midfielders. I still then have the stack-sized issue in my team. So I like option 3, but it probably feels less likely than option 2 as of right now. And then option 4 is basically the option if I decide for some reason that I want to keep Bruno, but more reasonably, if I decide actually that I would rather sell Stack ahead of Bruno, because I don't like Stack or Bruno, but I think probably Stack is more of an issue overall. He's a player that I'm less happy playing most weeks. So it would still be Gyökeres to Walter, but it would then be Stack to Enzo Fernandez. So Gyökeres to Walter, Stack to Enzo Fernandez. I like this because it solves my biggest issue in the midfield, in Stack, but also it frees up that 3rd Arsenal spot for me to decide what I want to do moving forward. If Arsenal keep clean sheets over the next couple, I may well just go and get Timber if I made this and just go triple Arsenal defence. Or let's say Erdegaard's injury is worse than we first feared. Maybe Martinelli picks up an injury or something like that. And I'm looking at Eze. It's just been great. Maybe I go him. Or maybe I do just eventually move from Bruno Fernandes to Saka. I'd only need to free up 0.4, 0.5 million to make that move in game week sort of 9, 10, 11. So I like this because, yes, it means that I only have then 2 Arsenal, but for the next couple against Fulham and Crystal Palace, that's not too bad, and then it frees up that 3rd spot. So I actually think option 4 is quietly maybe not a bad option, but then it does feel weird just taking out Gyökeres this week for the sake of it, just to give me a bit of an upgrade on Stack, who's got Burnley this week, which isn't a bad fixture. So as you can see, like again, I've not really been thinking much about FPL over the last 10, 12 days. I'll hold my hands up, and maybe that's why I'm a little bit muddled, but I kind of just feel like there are various options right now. Maybe it's just a classic case of Ross overthinking it. So if I go back to my team right now, I would love to know down below in the comments, what would you do with this team? Would you make 1 move, 2 moves, 3 moves, roll the transfer, reassess next week? Do you see Stack or Bruno as the biggest issues? Would love your feedback. I read every single comment, by the way, so feel free to drop anything down below and I'll give it a read. Tomorrow will be deadline decisions. Then, of course, there'll be a deadline stream on Saturday. Thank you for your patience with the lack of content over the international break. And also, let me know what your plans are as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 8 team selection. Thank you very much for watching as always. And if you did enjoy this video, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.